Moving over to women in sports. We mentioned over this month, I've learned gender pay parity, women being judged on what they wear.
Mm.
What other, oh yeah, sports not being really promoted because women don't sell. What other issues do you think resonate with you in terms of women in sports?
Uh, I was actually reading up on one of my favorite track athletes, Alison Felix.
Mm,
Um, and I was shocked and upset at when I read her story because she was just talking about how she was Nike discriminated against her when she fell pregnant, and they told her
mm,
that she would be paid 70% less. This is a woman who had an incredible record. She had amazing accolades. She was actually one of the highest advertised females or just athletes from Nike. And now that she fell
mm,
pregnant, now that she was pregnant, um, they were saying, no, sorry, we're going to cut your pay by 70%, because there was an assumption that by virtue of her being pregnant, that it would affect her performance as an athlete when she came
mm,
back. And so she obviously, as we all know, she walked away from Nike and she came back better and she actually won a medal, you know, and she
mm.
broke records, you know. She got more medals, she got the most medals or whatnot. I forgot what happened. But for me, that's really upsetting that it has to be a challenge or that you falling pregnant as a female athlete means that, oh, sorry, your career is over. That's an assumption. Even
Mm,
Serena, I think a lot of people thought that her career was going to end by virtue of her having a baby. And she's still out there, she's still pushing, and she's still doing
mm,
well. But why do women have to be treated badly or sort of like have that discrimination against them when they're about to enter one of the most important chapters of their life, and that's being a mother or falling pregnant? That's
mm.
not cool, kind of a thing. So I think that's a major challenge that doesn't sit well with me. And then obviously the pay one, which I've mentioned, and yeah, could go on and
That's
on.
come up multiple times this month. Gender pay
Yeah.
parity, advertising, marketing of women's sports. Taboho was played. She said she played touch rugby, and if she went to nationals or went and represented the country overseas, she'd have to pay for her own trip.
What?
Hmm. On
Sucks. But the male,
Allison, yeah, the male
yeah.
team probably didn't. Oh, I was saying Allison Felix. She's not the first athlete who had that problem. I think there's been other athletes as well who had the same problem with Nike. And I think one of
Yes.
them went to Oizel, which is like another startup brand in America.
Okay.
Mm,
So,
mm,
so actually, with the Ellison Felix thing, why I was actually reading up about it a few days ago is because these big brands, including Nike, have now started, they've altered their contracts to accommodate women falling pregnant, and they've realized that discriminating against them is not right. Because after Ellison spoke out about it, quite a few female athletes also spoke about
mm,
how they were discriminated against. And obviously, it didn't look good for these brands.
mm,
But it's also just wrong, in a time where, people are speaking up more and more. So they've all had to sort of go back and change their contracts, to accommodate that. Fine, women will be pregnant, but it doesn't mean that we need to, discriminate against them or cut their contracts. Only in the event that when they come back and their performance really isn't great, and they've like gone down, then we can sort of say, okay, no, this is not working out.
mm.
And Ellison actually does say that when Nike was like, no, sorry, we're cutting your pay, she was like, no, but give me a chance. If I come back and my performance is really not great, then I'll understand. But you guys are already deciding that before anything has happened, and that's not cool. So, yeah. But I'm glad to see.
Ipileng,
Hmm?
Ipileng says NBA refs get paid more than WNBA players.
That's ridiculous. Yeah. I was actually speaking about the first time I spoke to Atlahang, I was telling him about the major payment discrepancies between NBA and WNBA. That WNBA players get peanuts in comparison to the NBA guys, you know. That the best WNBA player still gets way less than the worst NBA player, which is ridiculous for me. Like an entry
Mm.
level NBA player still gets paid more than a WNBA vet, MVP, someone who's won championships still, just by virtue of that. So that's crazy. I didn't know
You
about the
sent
refs as well.
you sent me a post of a player from the NBA who bought a house that was worth more than the entire WNBA league.
Yes, yes, yes. So I mean, with the NBA and the WNBA, I've had guys say to me, "But Thato, you need to be realistic. Um, the NBA makes way more money than the WNBA." But doesn't that go back to marketing and the
Mm.
amount of, you know, work and marketing inputs and whatever that they're putting into the WNBA? Where's
Mm.
that? Obviously, way more is put into the NBA, meaning the NBA will make way more than the WNBA. But had they
Mm.
had the same marketing on the same level, maybe the WNBA would actually be like, okay, you know what? We can actually compete here in terms of numbers because apparently it's a numbers game, which I'll respect. I get that. But to what extent, guys?
Mm. Also, it comes to with the sponsorships, right? If they had the sponsorships, then there'd be more
Yeah.
girls who'd want to play, and the league would be bigger.
No. Don't get me wrong. Girls want to play. Girls have the passion. They are talented girls, you know. But the sponsors, the marketing, that's where,
Mm.
you know, it fails in that sense. So yeah, it's bad. Hmm.
So now we're actually having this session because of lockdown. If you didn't have Corona, this would have been like an interview over email, would have been posted. But here we are on a Friday evening discussing these topics. How has Corona? We're in level 2 lockdown right now, but how has Corona affected you personally?
Uh, Shucks. I think it affected me the same way it sort of affected most people in the sense that you had to go back to the drawing board, you know.
Yeah.
That you thought life was going a certain way, then boom, you know, this corona
Mm.
thing comes and you have to sit down and be like, okay, whoa, back to the drawing board, you know. So I think for me the biggest thing was or the level that hit me the most was level 5 because we weren't even allowed to practice. But obviously
Mm.
there've been a lot of regulations and protocols and the way you just work, the way you live, everything had to change. You know, I had to spend more time at home. Like, I mean, I know from May, May until like the end of the year, I spend very little time at home because I'm always at work. It's peak season for everything, running, basketball. We go away on national championships, you know, leagues are on. Now I was here and I was like, I'm at home. Whoa, you know, kind of a thing. You know, I have to find ways to reach out to patients from home and even the ones who would come in to what's this to consult personally, you know, you have to reassure them or you have to send them questions like have you been in contact with someone that's COVID, things like that, you know. It literally was a back to the drawing board thing. It was a pause and reset type of a thing.
Mm.
uh, it's been very humbling in that sense, I'd say, because it just comes to show you that life isn't predictable. Well, not that life ever was predictable, don't get
Mm.
me wrong. But, you know, nothing is guaranteed. You think you have this plan, you know, for your year or life, and then a pandemic like this comes and you realize actually nothing, nothing is guaranteed, you know. So, yeah, it's been very interesting, I'd say. Um, just sort of taking every day as it comes, you know, even if you do have plans, you sort of always have to have a plan B, C, D, E, F, kind of G, under any circumstance, for any condition in the world, I'd say.
Yeah, that's true. And what do you think our new normal is going to be?
Hmm. So before level 2, I would have said we're going to do a lot of things via um, Zoom or Teams. We're going to live in a virtual world. I mean, people have been getting married via Zoom. It's just been interesting in that sense. But with level 2 coming, I see people are back in restaurants and living or pretending that they're living and that nothing is happening when something is happening. But a lot of a lot of companies are going to realize that they don't need their office spaces, that they can let their
Mm,
employees sort of work from home, and that it might probably
mm,
save them a lot of money.
yeah.
You don't have to have people there. If people are performing and you can have your meetings via whatever system, then why not, kind of a thing. Um, I personally think weddings and funerals in the Black community in particular can happen via Zoom. I think we'd save a lot of money. I know it's controversial. I know people might not agree with me. I think it wouldn't be such a bad idea, especially with venue weddings. My goodness, like we spend so much. I think it's made me realize that you can save so much through this world. I
Yeah.
think someone's getting married or they have a funeral, you know, like
Mm,
there must be a limit, 50 to 100, and then everyone else can tune in. I know people won't
mm,
like me for that comment, but it's okay. Um, birthday parties, can be via, Teams and stuff. But I don't know. I think in another world that would happen. I think people will still try and force to have things physically,
mm,
obviously. Uh, Look, as humans, we are relational, okay?
mhm.
So we want to see and touch and be around each other. But I mean, this year has proven to us that we can sort of find other ways to still connect. It
Yeah.
doesn't always physically, and we can save a lot of money.
Mm.
So, yeah.
I agree with you on the funeral one. It's a very controversial topic because I think for our generation, if we had 50 people at a wedding or a funeral, that would be fine. We save so much money. But for my mother's generation, it's like how,
Oh man,
we have to go
trying
to
to,
this person's funeral. We have to go to this person's funeral. So, yeah.
nah. I mean, personally, I've seen some really gorgeous weddings via Zoom. It wasn't like a
Yeah.
train. And I thought, hey, why not spend all that money on the decor and not people? People can love us and be like, oh, cute from home. You don't all have
Mm.
to come and love each other. But it's fine. I know people won't agree with me. Yeah.
Ipileng says funerals, weddings should only accommodate family and close friends.
But Ipileng, people, you get popular people who could have 50 or 100 close friends. Close friends is relative, I think. What
Mm,
is a close friend? Some people can justify. I mean, one of my best friends was getting married 2 years ago, and her
mm,
list was very short. But her husband's list, my goodness, it was a headache. And he's like, no, but these are all my close friends. Close friends is relative. How do you control that? Or do we have the same definition of what a close friend is? I don't know.
mm, mm.
I don't know.
Very
Mm,
interesting thing because
controversial.
it's
But yeah,
controversial, especially in the black community, because a
it's
funeral
been
is like a weekend thing. It's a Saturday morning. We're going to this person's funeral, then we're going to this funeral. Just talk fairly. And if you don't come to
at
my
least
funeral or my family's funeral, I'm not coming to yours.
it's so weird, right? So we lost my one of my aunts, one of my favorite aunts, like 2 weeks ago. It's
Mm,
COVID, okay? She passed away from COVID, meaning it's supposed to be like an extremely tight, close-knit type of funeral. But she left Kokasi, biggest problem. And people know that you can't have more than 50 people. They know. Can I just say that we had to close the gate and there were still people
mm,
around, like every 5 minutes there were people arriving. I think by the time we left for the gravesite, there were like over 200 people. And in their heads, they're like, no, I'm here to pay my last respects. No, guys,
Hmm.
no. Oof, man, listen,
It's
it
gotten
doesn't
to the
make
point where people drive to the funeral,
sense.
like the church or the house, but they don't go
Yeah,
in the house. They stay in the car, and then when the procession leaves for the graveyard, they go home.
which doesn't make sense. Yes, there were people who were dressed up and they got dropped off. And I'm like, but you know, this is a COVID funeral. You know that we can't have over 50 people. Bruh, people came. Like, people came
Mm.
through. You're right. And they come in their Sunday best. Né? They don't just
Of
come,
course, of
say,
course,
no, my respects. No. So I don't
of
know,
course.
man. It's just weird.
These are our new lives. Do you think it's gonna get back to normal to that point again, where we are just interacting with each other and there's no social distancing?
Uh, yeah, probably. Especially like you're saying with our parents' generation or grandparents' generation. That's the only life they know. To expect them to tap into this virtual life and accept it fully might be a bit ambitious, right? Because you know that they're also usually very stubborn when it comes to just trying to teach them about technology or these phones or computers and
Mm,
stuff. So I think, yeah, it probably will go back to that a point where there is no thing where we have to socially distance. But the question is when, kind of a thing. Because, I mean, I was even just thinking about racing season or things like Comrades or Oceans. When will races be
mm,
normal again? Because the fact of the matter is we're trying to find a normal or a new normal with this, uh, virus still lingering, which in
mm.
itself is a challenge and probably really dangerous. But I mean, we have to go on and the economy has to open. Um, but maybe by 2022, we can easily, like, oh, fully be going back to interacting without worrying about social distancing. Or maybe I'm being ambitious in saying that because, it boils down as well to vaccines. I hear Russia has a vaccination of some sort, but even then, how valid is this vaccination considering that, it was made in such a rush sort of setup?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't
And the virus mutates as well. So even that vaccine will vaccinate
know.
against this strain. Like the flu vaccine also was developed somehow out of a flu pandemic.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, we're coming. Oh, and also, so the other day I had a conversation with Kosi, and she said one of her friends mentioned that when we come out of this lockdown and into our new world, we are going to notice that first of all, there's less people than there were when we went into it. Um,
True.
and this is where healing comes into play. I know that you've suffered loss quite recently, actually, of two people that were very close to you. So how did you heal?
True. With healing, uh, I don't think it happens overnight, firstly. I think healing is just an ongoing process, especially if you've lost loved ones or anything. But I actually want to bring it to grief. It never ends, you know. I think you just sort of find a way to live with the scars. Someone once said, it's like having an open wound. And with a wound or a big, big, big scar, it eventually closes, but with some people you can always see there's like a scar and you're like, oh, what happened there, kind of a thing. So I think with healing or grieving or losing on that level, that's sort of how it will always be. And you find your way, you find your feet again eventually. But it will always be there, that absence of whoever it is that you've lost. So in my case, I'd say it's my mom or my soulmate or my aunt. I've lost quite a lot. I've lost a lot of close friends. Close people, sorry. Um, but you have to go on because you're still alive, you know. Uh, so while you're alive, you have to make it count because you can't then get to a point where you're so broken that you're not living and you're holding on to those people who are in another, realm or in another life, in the afterlife, depending on what you think
Mm,
or believe about that, because they'd also want you to live, you know. They'd want you to make your time on earth worthwhile and still count. So, for me, I've come to a point where I try and find ways to remember them rather than to hold on to them, and to honor their
mm,
memory. I think that's
mm.
that's one of the most important things. I had a patient the other day, and he was telling me he lost the love of his life. She passed away,
Oh,
and he was saying that he feels so guilty every time he's happy, not even dating someone, happy. And I'm like, you can't do that. You can't crucify yourself for them passing away. You didn't ask for them to pass away. You didn't ask for them to leave, because if you had it your way, they wouldn't have ever passed away to begin with, right? And you'll
mm,
forever love that person or love those people, but you need to live. And in that way, you are continuing your love for them, but they'd want you to live.
mm,
You can't not think. So how have I, back to your question, I mean, healing, yeah. So I mean, I found different ways to sort of cope with my loss. Um, Through writing. Writing is something that I actually always used to love doing growing up, just to express myself. I've always felt like I express myself best when I'm writing. So journaling, especially on the heavy days, and running in sports,
mm,
just letting it out on the road, just releasing. It's so therapeutic. I think it's just important to find a way to just release that pain, because I once read something that says grief is love, a lot of love that you just have, and you have no way to release it to. So you don't have atlachang anymore in the physical to release it to. So there's just this pain. So
mm.
writing and running for me, and listening to music, I'd say, have been three of the biggest things that have really just helped me keep it together. Yeah.
And yeah, music. I've never actually discussed this. Music. Any bands or rather music that you listen to that you think nobody else listens to this and they should listen to it?
Sorry, repeat. Wait. Sorry, please repeat your question.
Artists. So like music that you listen to, are there any artists that you listen to and you think, this is really awesome, but this is a really awesome artist, but they don't get exposure. They're like my little treasure.
Hmm. I don't have an answer for now. Do you have any?
So, you've got like your Coldplay. I remember when my uncle passed away, Coldplay was like my mechanism to cope with loss because I was still in high school and I still had to function like nothing happened because I was in grade 11 and it was like around September. So that's when like exams are really starting to intensify. So
Oh,
back then,
yeah.
yeah. So Coldplay then was like my release, if you could say. But over the years, there's been like London Grammar, there's been Daughter, I think the alternative artists write about sadness and pain so much that when you're listening to them, you can relate, especially if you're going through that space. So that sort of makes it easier in a way, if I could say that.
Oh, you actually just reminded me. Oh, you took me back to a painful moment. So before my mom passed away, we had to call an ambulance because her condition just got really, really bad. Um, and then I was driving behind the ambulance, which was flying like Schumacher, right? But
Mm,
while I was driving behind that ambulance, there was a song by Dr. Dumi that played. And I thought that was so weird, but powerful in the sense that my mom loved Dr. Dumi. She loved his music,
mm,
you know? And there was this song, and it was long. And I feel like it was actually playing for most of that drive behind that ambulance. And the other day, my music was just playing via shuffle, and it played, and I froze. Because I'm like, oh my gosh. Music is so powerful in the sense
mm,
that um, you could hear a song that you've always heard, but because that song played at a specific moment, it will now have that memory, you know. So
Mm,
now when I hear that song by Dr. Dumi, I'm just like, phew, you know, it takes me back. So Dr. Dumi, to answer you, reminds me of my mom quite a lot because she loved him. And there was also this other song. I remember the one time I was driving her to hospital for chemo. It was by Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir, you know.
mm.
And I remember she just looked so peaceful and she was humming to it when it played. So when that plays, I actually remember her. Like, oh, you know, she'd be smiling. So I imagine her smiling and just humming to that song. So yeah, music is very, very powerful. So I get what you say when you say your uncle loved Coldplay and yeah, totally get you.
It also translates to running, right? Because sometimes you're running and you think about that. It's very tough, and you think about that one song, and then you're like, oh, if I could just hear the song right now. So sometimes I actually run and I'm typing like music that I want to listen to.
You're
I
typing.
run with my phone. Yeah,
How do
and
you
I've
do
gotten
that?
so I have gotten so good at it. I literally could be running and on my phone, I like type a few like letters and it picks up and I'm like play. So I run with music, and also remember that I'm not a speedy runner as you. So at the back of
No,
the pack, we've got time.
don't discriminate.
Uh-uh.
No.
Us slow runners have got time. We're not chasing time. We're not chasing pace. That's all right.
No. Can I just correct you? People always say I'm chasing. I'm not chasing. I just ran. Like I'm saying, I release. Or for me, I'm competing with myself. Like, oh, you know,
Mm,
do a bit better. No, but the way people make it sound like, oh, you're chasing, you're chasing. It's, different strokes for different folks. Let's agree to that. Mm-hmm.
uh, that picture I
Mm-hmm.
sent you earlier on, and you're like, everybody looks like they're in pain here except me.
Right.
So that's what the front of the pack looks like. And at the back of the pack, that's all right, you're still smiling. Well, I don't think on a hill we're smiling,
Hours.
but
Running doesn't have to be a miserable thing, honestly. Like I think people take running too seriously sometimes. Although I guess like we've agreed, it depends on whatever your goal is. But like you can enjoy it. You can enjoy it even with whatever goals you have. You can run and smash a 10K and still be smiling. You don't have to look like somebody stole your puppy and you're miserable, kind of a thing. So yeah.
I think it depends on the type of run like that you had on that day though. So if you had told yourself that I'm gonna have a good run, then things fall apart mid run, you're just like, oh my gosh, there
Life
goes
does
my
happen.
plan out the window. Exactly.
If running has taught me one thing is that life can happen. You can be, at your fittest. I mean, my first Comrades was such a mess. Like I was at my fittest, I was ready, and then life happened. I had runners
Hmm.
time, my knee fell apart, but you try and I think it's a good lesson in that you just have to learn to pick yourself up. You
Hmm.
have to keep going and push till the end. It just teaches you to never give up, even if you're having a bad run. You want to finish
Hmm.
it with pride, kind of a thing. So that for me, that's what my first comrades taught me. And then the second one was really, really great. So yeah, it depends. It boils down to your mind, even when life happens.
Um, Rizzo_King says, do you not enjoy it once you reach your goal? But before that, hot.
Go thata. Go thata, obviously. Nobody's saying running is easy. Running is not easy, Rizzo. Like, even if you're the fastest runner, you see flames in whatever way possible, you know? But yes,
Mm.
once you reach your goal, yes, obviously it's nice and it's all worth it. But yeah, it's hard. Running is tough. But it's good therapy as well, I think. It's very
Like
therapeutic.
Anessa said, it's a moving meditation. When she said that, I was like, what are
She
you
hit your
saying?
soul, eh?
She, she scratched me inside because I'm not one for meditation and all of that. People actually think that I'm into meditation because I practice yoga, and I'm like, no. I mean,
Not like
I'm on the yoga mat for the flexibility, but now, like, for the stretching, because we runners tend to not always stretch after runs and before runs. So that time on the mat is my time to work on my body and my hamstrings and all of that. But the spiritual part of yoga, I hadn't explored yet.
Yeah, no, same here. Like I do yoga
Um,
sometimes. Yeah.
mhm.
Hmm?
You
No,
said
no,
you're
no,
doing
go.
yoga sometimes? Oh, Bondo says, I'm a great supporter.
Of what, yoga?
I think of you, not of yoga.
Oh, how? Okay. That's actually one of my best friends from high school. So yeah, we go
Hmm.
way. I'm a great
You've
supporter of
got a
you
lot
too,
of
girl.
supporters. You've got a lot of supporters.
Uh,
But you were speaking about yoga and your time on the mat.
no, listen, yoga is not that deep for me. I did it last year before Comrades because someone said it makes you a better runner. And I really wanted to do well at Comrades. I was going for my Robert Mjali. So I did yoga. And I must say, I felt a difference. My run was nice, didn't have problems, and I recovered a lot better. So I think there's definitely, some power to yoga. But like you're saying, we don't all do yoga for like the, calming and what. No, some of us are just
Yeah,
there to
check
be flexible.
around.
We want a good core. It's not that deep for some of us. Core. So yeah,
You're doing it for the core.
do it for my core and flexibility. Let me be so real with you. I mean, not to say there's anything wrong with doing it for deeper reasons. Maybe I'll dive into it one day. Maybe. We'll see.
At first, I was doing it for the flexibility, but like after practicing it for a while and having these conversations with people who've practiced yoga before, I think I will start the journey into the spiritual part of it, but I've never thought of it that way. For me, like you, it was always flexibility, become a better runner, and which is true because after a day after I practice yoga and I go running, it's so much better than a day where I just rested and I did nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yes, Ngab, 6 packs in our lifetime.
Indeed. All about those apps.
Before we end the session off, Tato, would you share a message to the women of South Africa for Women's Month?
Ooh, message. Um, I think you know, as individuals, we all have our own power just by being you. You being Atlachang, there's power to that. Me being Thato Meka, there's power to that. So I think my message, if any, would be that, we must all stay true to ourselves and our message. Um, because, you never really know who's watching. Not that it's even about anyone, but it's always about you. But in that, a great story comes out of it, and you living your truth, can literally just inspire a generation, or, open up so many doors. I like to,
Mm,
I think Zosie is one of my favorite examples. I mean, this chick went to Miss Universe with short hair, and she wins. That's so powerful because she stuck to her guts and her story and her truth. And look at how much she's unlocked. Brown skinned girls, rocking their short hair like they've never rocked it before. Girls who were always told that, you look like a boy, kind of a thing. So,
mm,
um, you know, stay true to you, stay of it, and a powerful story in itself, just by you being you. Um, and yeah, take up space, as Zosie said as well. Take up space and don't be afraid to go for what you want. Yeah, yeah. There's space and room for all of us to succeed, and we can all do so supporting each other and being great. So yeah, I just say go for it, go for all of it, and don't be shy about it, don't be apologetic about it. That would really be my main message to women out there. Yeah.
such a powerful message. And on the note of Zosi's take up space, what's next for you?
What's next for me?
Next
Oh,
steps.
yo, you want me to tell my secrets to the world?
One or two.
I actually want to take up a space. Funny, we should use those very words. There's something I'm working on, with regards to taking up quite a large space in the corporate wellness world. So
Mm,
watch that space. I'm working on something. I'm excited about it. Um, and I hope it works out. And yeah, we'll see what
yeah.
happens. That's the only secret I'm telling you tonight. The rest, you'll just read about it, or you'll hear me telling you about it. But yeah.
And please share so that we can broadcast your secrets once they revealed.
Oh, one that's not a secret is my company website is almost done. So I'll publish that on my Insta page once that's done. So that would be really cool, just because
Mm,
remember we
mm,
are relational beings and we
yeah,
need each other. So yeah.
yeah. Tato, it was so great to have you tonight. The internet was somewhat stable today,
It did well. It
but
helped for the most part.
yeah, it did, it did. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was such a nice chat, unpacking all of these issues like running and feeling and being a woman in entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, I look forward to seeing it on YouTube. Thank you so much.
And share, and share, and share.
I will
Very
share.
important. Share, share. Yeah, yeah.
I will. Thank you.
Okay.
I
So,
so much.
oh, my pleasure. Have a good
Namaste.
weekend.
Namaste.
Yeah.